And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
This is your RBLR Race podcast. I'm your host, Zach Dow, along with my co-host, Pat Davenport. Pat, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. We're almost there now. I know I say this every week, but we're 2 days away from the month where baseball starts again.
Yes.
So when you likely are listening to this, we're like 2 weeks away from camp opening. It's super exciting. I can't wait. But someone that I do have to throw some commiserations to is big game James Shields, who got 0 Hall of Fame votes over the past week when the ballots finally got announced. He was one of the 2 players that didn't get a single vote from all 300 and something riders in the BBWAA. Poor big game James. I want to just give him thank you for all you did for the Rays and for the Royals, and all you did for baseball. Even though you may not be a Hall of Famer, we appreciate you and what you did for the Rays, particularly in our first kind of ascension to the top of baseball in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, he was I don't think there's many Rays fans that don't have like super fond memories of James Shields. You call him Big Game James for a reason. It's a little unfortunate. His career ERA plus is like a 102, so he's definitely a Hall of Very Good guy. But somebody could have put him on the ballot. I mean, there's somebody out there could have had some pity and thrown him on there because he definitely deserved at least one vote. But will he be in the Tampa Bay Rays Hall of Fame one day? They've started doing that. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it. I think if they, as they're getting down the list, I don't know how they've done it pretty slow. They've only had a couple inductees so far. I don't know when they're going to start inducting more people, but whenever they do start inducting more people, I do think James Shields would be worth getting into the Rays Hall of Fame personally.
Yeah, I mean, that 2011 season in particular, will just never happen again in the way that pitching is used in current baseball. 249 innings of 2.82 ERA baseball.
Bonkers.
Like 4 complete game shutouts. Insanely good value. Third in Cy Young, an all-star, even got MVP votes that year. He was unbelievable. And I guess he was also, he got traded to the Royals. We got Will Myers out of it. And he also got traded for Fernando Tatis to the Padres.
Yeah. How about that?
And he also gave up Bartolo Colon's home run as well.
Did he really? I didn't know that.
That was him.
That's so fun. Who also did not stay on the ballot.
No.
Tough one. Did not stay on the ballot. Very, 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 very tough. You know what's not tough? Is walking your little finger right on down to the like button if you're on your phone, or just moving the mouse right over to the like button to the subscribe button to continue to be a part of what we're building here at RBLR, the best Tampa sports podcast group out there. All the best stuff for all your favorite teams in the Tampa area. Like and subscribe if you want to be a part of what we're continuing to build. We'd love to have you. Share us around as well. We'd love for more people and people that that are also Tampa Bay fans to hear some cool stuff about the teams that they like. Speaking about teams that you like, we're going to hear talk about the Rays. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Hall of Fame, so stay tuned for that. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the guys that did get in, some of the guys that didn't get in, what we may think about that, including a Tampa guy who unfortunately did not get in. We'll have some thoughts there. We've also got some player reviews, 3 player reviews today. One guy that is, I think people like him, but there's some indecision on where he fits with the Rays. One guy that everybody likes for the most part, and some people really don't like, which is a fun dichotomy. I'm on one side. I think we're both on one side, and there's some other people on the other side. We'll discuss that. We've also got a player who I think is a little underrated, and I think there's some discussion around his position in particular that I think is unwarranted, and we're going to get into all of that. So stick around to hear all of that. But to get us started, back to the Hall of Fame talk. The headline: 3 entries into the Baseball Hall of Fame this year, 2024. Adrian Beltre, shocker. Todd Helton did get in, which was great. Joe Mauer got in kind of slimly, only a 76% vote. So he was right on the edge there, but still does get in on the first ballot. So congratulations to all those guys. What are your thoughts on those?
All 3 absolutely deserving Hall of Famers. I'm thrilled for all 3 of them. Beltre, I remember having just nightmares about him when the Rays and Rangers would constantly battle it out in the playoffs in the early 2010s. he's not only one of the best third basemen of all time, but also just like a great guy as well. From everything that we've seen, he was always having fun. He wasn't afraid to take things light, to take things jokingly, and just made baseball a more fun place with him around in it. So love Adrian Beltre. Do you have any thoughts on good old Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, he was fun. He was good for baseball. We need more players like him who just enjoy the game, love playing the game, and you can tell it. It was not fun to see him coming into the batter's box per se, because you knew he was probably going to do some damage. But it was always fun getting to play him because you knew you were going to see a guy who really enjoyed the game. And to me, I'm always going to really enjoy that. He was good almost his entire career, pretty much. Put up over 93 wins above replacement. Just a phenomenal career for him. It's a little bit sneaky. I would have guessed, if you just asked me, that he put up about 80 WAR over his career. 93.5 wins above replacement according to Baseball Reference. So really, really, really good career for Adrian Beltre. Hall of Fame, 100% deserving. I was going to ask you, if you had a Hall of Fame vote, what would your ballot have been? What would it have looked like?
Oh, that's a great question. I would vote for the three guys that got in, Helton, Mauer, and Beltre. I also would have voted for Billy Wagner. I think we do need to make more room for relievers in the Hall of Fame. I think right now there's not enough relievers in there, and you've got to be like a top 5 reliever of all time to get in. But even if that is the bar you've got to clear, Billy Wagner's probably in the mix of that conversation. Yeah. He was maybe the best lefty reliever of all time, at least top 3. So I would have voted for him. I would have voted for A-Rod. And that's a controversial one. I'm sure you'll all be in the comments telling me that I should not vote for A-Rod. The reason I would vote for A-Rod is because, he's almost 100 WAR. I know he got done in for PEDs, but for me, that makes me put like a discount on his numbers as opposed to disregard them entirely. I go, okay, maybe they made him 10, 20% better. If we discounted his numbers by 10, 20%, he would still be Hall of Fame worthy in terms of his numbers. And I just wish he never went to the Yankees, one, because they put him out of his position that he was best at. And also, it just meant we had to play against him all the time. So that sucked, but I liked A-Rod. I'm going to have to double check the ballot of anyone else that I would have voted for. Give me 1 second. I think I probably would. Was there anyone else that I said that you would have voted for?
Yeah, I would have voted for the 3 that got in, plus Billy Wagner. Plus, I would have also voted for A-Rod. I think it's a little bit silly if you just look down the ballot when you see like 60 WAR, oh, maybe 70. Oh, wait, there's 120 WAR almost sitting there on the ballot with 34.8% of the vote. I think it's a little ridiculous. I also know that he was mean to the media, which the media does not like. It's only his 3rd year. I think maybe he has a chance to get in the future. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of develops. But I haven't really talked about the Hall of Fame. We haven't talked about it too much on this program. So I'll just say, for those of you who are curious, yes, I would have voted for Barry Bonds. He's the best player who has ever played baseball. It's not really much of an argument about it. Even if you look at him before the PED stuff happened, he was still maybe a top, 10 player ever, and he just continued on from there to be just pure excellence. So he's a Hall of Famer. It's a bit ridiculous that he's not in the Hall. I hope one day they will figure it out and get him in there somehow. It's a bit ridiculous. I would also have voted for Andrew Jones.
Right.
Chase Utley is one that I don't know that I would have voted for him this year, because I think there is something to being a first ballot, like getting a vote on the first ballot, but I would probably vote for Chase Utley next year or the year after. So he's a guy that I think probably deserves to be in the Hall, but maybe not yet. Andrew Jones would have voted for this year. He does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I think it's ridiculous he only got 61% of the vote. I don't know what people are looking at. He is just really, really good. He maybe one of the best defensive players to ever play, and he's just chilling outside of the Hall. He's been on the ballot for 7 years now and has only got 61% of the vote. I think it's ridiculous. I hope he continues to climb and makes it in next year. Next year's going to be tough because there's some really, really good players on the ballot for the first time next year. It might be a tough year for him to get in, which makes me a little bit nervous because I don't want to see him not get in. So I hope he does continue to make progress next year, but I would 1,000,000% vote for Andrew Jones, and I hope he eventually gets in.
Andrew Jones is a nice pick. I think I would eventually come around to voting for Carlos Beltran as well. I think I know the banging scheme was a thing. I know they did the cheating at the end, but like if we don't look at that, everything else is like, yeah, he's probably a Hall of Famer. And we have yet to truly determine how much he actually benefited from the trash banging stuff. Like, I would still, if he retired tomorrow, vote Jose Altuve into the Hall of Fame. So it's one of those. Andrew Jones is good though. Like, one of the best defenders the outfield has ever seen. I am a little like unsure if I would vote for him just because of how big the fall off was to the second half of his career. But yeah, this is a name I want to discuss with you. Do you know who is on the ballot next year? And I think he's probably not going to get in, but like there's a weird case. Ben Zobrist.
That's right. Ben Zobrist is on the ballot next year. So, and here's the thing about that, right? Part of the reason why I didn't know that he was on the ballot next year because I forgot, but part of the reason why I voted for a guy like Chase Utley is because I think if a guy like Chase Utley can make it into the Hall, a guy like Ben Zobrist could as well. I think it'll be very important. It's going to be a bit of a nail biter. I think if Zobrist can hang on in his first year, if he can just make it to that 25% mark in his first year, I think he's got a really good chance to make it long term. Because I think we're evolving into an era right now where we are continuing to value the utility guy, which is something that he really kind of pioneered. So I think we're going to continue to value that guy, and seeing him as one of the pioneers, I could see some, maybe you call it narrative ball if you want, but some narratives being played, especially into like maybe 2 or 3 years in his candidacy, where there's some steam can kind of build up for him and he could make it in. But I think the key is going to be just, can he get that 25% and just hang on in his first year on the ballot?
That's it. I mean, his numbers aren't particularly eye-popping if you just look at like the stat line of counting stats. He didn't get 200 career home runs. He's a 266 career hitter, only 100 and something stolen bases. Didn't even get to 2,000 hits. He did get 44.5 BWAR, which is probably not enough, but his WAR is high compared to what his numbers would tell you. Yes. And I think, if you want to play narrative ball, he won 2 World Series. And he was the big part for the Cubs winning that World Series.
Yes.
So a big game player, if that matters to you. And yeah, a pioneer for how kind of baseball would be played in the coming years after him. He was the first kind of regular to just play wherever was needed and not get stuck to a position.
Yeah.
And he was really good at both second base and right field in particular. He was really good at both of those.
Yeah.
So... yeah. Maybe.
And again, I think, like, for example, Chase, I mentioned Chase Utley. Chase Utley is obviously much better than him from accounting stats and from a career perspective. If you just look at his numbers, much better. He has like almost 20 more WAR than Ben Zobrist. But I think of a guy like him, I think it was a good thing to see him stick on the ballot for his first year. That was good to see for me, to see him stick on the ballot, because I think that bodes well for Ben Zobrist. I think also seeing David Wright stick on the ballot was also a good thing to see him stick on the ballot. How many? I am now realizing that I set the wrong percentage of how much percentage of votes it takes for you to stick on the ballot. Is it 5%?
It's 5. Yeah,
it's 5%. I'm losing my mind. I feel much better now. Now that I remembered that. But I think David Wright also sticking on the ballot is a good sign for a guy like Ben Zobrist, because while David Wright probably had a better, compact career, if you just look at like his 7 best years, probably better than Ben Zobrist's 7 best years. But the fact that he stayed on the ballot at all, I think, is a good sign. I hope he makes it. I really hope he does. I think he's a guy where if he didn't make it into the Hall of Fame, he would be like a upper echelon Hall of Very Good guy if we're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just begs the question, who do you think will be the first person to be inducted into the Hall of Fame wearing a Rays cap?
See, that's a really tough question. I don't think... No, I don't think... I don't think there's a certain manager who may get into the Hall of Fame at some point, but I don't think that he's probably going to be wearing a Rays cap. I don't know, what cap do you think he'll be wearing do you think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame at all?
Yeah, I think Joe Madden will get in the Hall of Fame.
Do you think he wears a Cubs hat? Maybe.
I guess so, because he broke the curse and he won the World Series. If he won the World Series in 08 with us, I think there's a legitimate discussion there.
He might still be the manager if he won the World Series in 08. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Give him a lifetime contract. Yeah. I don't think Zobrist will. Longoria, I think, is probably not going to get there. I don't think he did enough once he got traded, basically. So
probably not.
Then Kiermaier, I think, has a sneaky chance.
I think again, this is why I really want Andrew Jones to get in, because if Andrew Jones gets in, the case can be made for Kevin Kiermaier. Yeah. And I'd really like to see KK in the Hall of Fame. I think, and here's the thing, the reason why I might even say that I think KK deserves to be in over anyone else we've discussed, because he was for a time the best at doing something in all of baseball. And that's something that I think should matter if you're going into the Hall of Fame. If you can say this person was the best at doing something in all of Major League Baseball for an extended period of time, probably like 3 or 4 maybe, and you could maybe even still say now, I think there are guys that are better than him now, but you could make the argument. He was the best defensive outfielder for a long time, the best defensive center fielder for a long time. And I think if a guy like Andrew Jones can get in on kind of a similar case, and there's a good chance for KK as well. And KK's career is still going. He doesn't really show any signs of retiring anytime soon. He's still going. So, I guess we'll see. But I think if he could just continue to kind of accumulate some stats, accumulate some WAR, being really good defensively will help with that. He'll still accumulate some WAR. I think he can sneak up to like a sort of comfortable-ish WAR number. And maybe sneak into the Hall of Fame. I would really like to see that. I do think there's plenty of narrative ball you could play to get KK in.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe of all the people we've said, he's maybe the most likely to go in with a Rays cap, because I don't think he'd wear a Blue Jays cap.
Yeah, I would hope he would go in with a Rays cap.
Yeah,
I really would.
All right. So speaking of someone who is the best at doing something, I think we should move on to our first player review of the day. And it might be the best power hitter on the Rays. And that is our second baseman, Brandon Lowe.
He is the man. He is... it's tough when you look back at this last season, because this is a player review of the 2023 season for Brandon Lowe. This is not a player review of Brandon Lowe as a player overall. So if we're just looking back at the 2023 season, it's kind of an unfortunate discussion, unfortunately. I'd love to sing his praises, and I will get there eventually. But unfortunately, if we're just looking back at last season, it's a bit of a disappointment. Now, again, he still hit 21 home runs. He still hit to a 117 WRC plus. He still generated 2.8 FWAR. So those things are good. But the number that is tough to look at, unfortunately, is the 109 games played, the 436 plate appearances. It's not what we're looking for from Brandon Lowe. We know what he's capable of when he's fully healthy, when he's playing a full season. The only time he has played more than like 120 games in a year, he was an MVP candidate and he hit almost 40 bombs. So we know what he's capable of when he's fully healthy. He generated almost 5 F4 that season and hit to a 136 WRC plus. We know what he's capable of when he's healthy. The question is, will he be healthy? And last year he was not. And I think the injuries came at some inopportune times for him, because I think that the times that he got injured were, the first injury was when I think he was starting to heat up a little bit and he got hurt, and that really shot him back down. And then, of course, getting hurt at the end of the season, making him unavailable for the postseason, really hurt. It's really in the postseason where you want to have as many power threats and dangerous guys in your lineup as possible. It was really tough to not have him in the postseason, and that does kind of put a negative light just on his 2023 season. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's an improvement on his 2022 in pretty much every sense of the word. So that's good. He was on the field more. He managed to give a bit more production. All of his numbers went up from 2022, which is good. But yeah, we're nowhere near the production of 2021, where he was, one of the best hitters in the league. I am satisfied with a close to 120 WRC plus, considering the injuries. His back is a liability at this point. It has been on and off for the past 2 years. I'm hoping he's managed to rest up this offseason and the back is no longer an issue this year, because we could really do a full healthy season from him, especially when we are giving away a couple of our more prominent left-handed hitters. We need him to be a big left-handed presence in the bat. batter's box. Loads of still encouraging signs. He still is absolutely smashing the ball whenever he makes contact. He's still drawing a lot of walks, 11.5 walk percentage, which is really encouraging that he's still seeing the ball well. He's still fielding pretty well for my money. He had 4 outs above average, which put him in the 86th percentile, one of the better second basemen in terms of that stat. His arm isn't very good, but you don't really need one for a second baseman. You don't have to make very long throws often. So I'm satisfied that all the things under the hood of Brandon Lowe are still good. We just, like you said, need him to be on the field. When he is hot, he is a terrifying hitter to face. When he got hot early on in the 2023 season, he was a monster. He was crushing home runs for fun. And if we could get a season where he's kind of around that pace for a full consistent year, then you've got an MVP caliber player. This year, it's a shame that we couldn't rely on him for the full season, though, and that will hurt how we grade him and how his long-term future with the team projects if his health is going to continue to be spotty.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that the reason why Brandon Lowe is such an important part of the success of this team going forward is that for him, a down season would constitute putting him in the top 10 in the league in WRC plus. That's where he was last season. Despite the injuries, despite everything that happened, he was still in the top 10 of second baseman in WRC plus last season. That's the kind of guy that we're talking about. He was ranked inside the top 10, number 8 in home runs for all second basemen. So when this guy is healthy, he is so dangerous. He like terraforms the Rays lineup around him because pitchers know that he's there. They know you have to pitch around him. And we've talked about this a lot on the show over the months that I've been on it. At least we've talked about it a lot, that Brandon Lowe gets the best pitches from every pitcher that he faces. So sometimes his numbers look a little bit worse than they might, especially because in the past, he's kind of been the best hitter on the team for extended stretches of baseball. We're now entering an era where he may not be the best hitter, or at least it's in doubt with how well Yandy Diaz is playing right now. They're now in kind of like a dead heat is for like the best pure hitter on the team right now, because what Yandy has done is undisputable. But what we know Brandon Lowe can do is also undisputable. So having both of those guys in the lineup at the same time creates a very difficult situation for any pitcher that faces the team. If he's healthy, it creates such a difficult lineup because not only do you have to deal with those two guys, but you also have to deal with Josh Lowe, with Isaac Paredes, and then all the younger guys who are continuing to improve and move up, Harold Ramirez as well. It makes the lineup so difficult to navigate. And that is the value that he brings. It's the line of protection for the young guys to give them the ability to be more settled in and not get attacked as aggressively, because you can't use all your best bullets on like a Josh Lowe if you know that Brandon Lowe is right around the corner and you're going to have to deal with him. So there's a thing that he brings that is sort of unquantifiable, at least not that I know of. There's a stat that quantifies it. When he is healthy on the team is so much better offensively. So I just hope that he can be healthy, because if he's healthy, the team is so much better for him being healthy and being a part of this offense.
Absolutely. There is no hitter on the Rays that has the same makeup and profile as Brandon Lowe. You can't like Luke Raley was probably the closest thing we had of like big lefty that will smash the ball, but will have a lot of swing and miss in his game as well. Brandon Lowe is now the only one on the team that is that guy. So it is vital that we have that profile on the team to back up the kind of more contact-oriented righties like Yandy Diaz, like Harold Ramirez, that set up Brandon Lowe to swing for the fences and get extra base hits and drive in the runs. That's how you would draw up an ideal first inning, right? Yandy Diaz draws a walk or laces a single up the middle, and then maybe Harold moves him over, maybe whatever. And then Brandon Lowe hits a home run, and then it's 2-0 Rays. That's how you draw up an ideal first inning. That's the game plan. And we don't have a guy that is as reliably good at putting away those runs and those home runs as Brandon Lowe right now. So it is vital that he is healthy. If he can't prove this year that he can stay on the field, you've got to worry about his long-term future with the club at that point, because there's people on his back. Curtis Mead is on his back. and Junior Caminero are on his back. Jose Caballero is on his back. He now has to fight for his place if he can't stay healthy, because we've got a lot of people ready to step in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's maybe more than I would say about Jose Caballero. I'm not sure I would say that much about him, but I would say that at least about Curtis Mead, I would definitely say that, and about Junior Caminero as well, especially because Junior probably isn't playing shortstop long term for the Rays, so it would be natural for him to move to second, especially considering that Isaac Paredes has probably got it locked down over there at third, assuming they extend him, which they should.
Yeah.
A second base move would be a natural move for him. But nobody's moving over there if Brandon Lowe is playing as well as he can possibly play. And I think that's kind of all you can really hope for. If we're talking about what we hope for him in this coming season, just stay healthy, be on the field. If he is on the field, we know what he can do. So the only question I have about Brandon Lowe, I have no questions. I think his defense is better than it is sometimes, indicated based on statistics and based on, by the way, if you just happen to peruse and wander over to Fangraphs, you will notice that his defensive value above average according to Fangraphs was a 2.9, which is a positive number. In previous years, he's actually been a negative defensively, but this last year he's been positive. So even analytically, he's a better defender than I think he gets credit for. So he brings a lot of value, even base running. There's a lot of value there that we don't even talk about that much. But he's very good on the base pass. He's very good at taking the extra base and good at stealing when he needs to. He doesn't steal a lot, but he's very good at it when he wants to. If he's healthy, he's an incredibly valuable part of this team. He's an MVP candidate when healthy and going at full. That's not an opinion, that's a fact because we've seen it. So that's all we can really hope for, is that he just will be healthy next year. Everything we've seen this far this offseason, there has been a whole lot of reporting, but the little reporting we have seen, Tomkin mentioned earlier in the offseason that they expect him to be healthy and ready for the winter camps and moving into spring training. They expect him to be healthy and ready. So that's all we can really go off so far.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you grade Brandon Lowe on his 2023?
I would give him a B+. And I'd give him a B+ for the time that he played, but also taking into account that he was injured and the best ability is availability. So B+ is the highest I can give him.
Yeah, I have the same reasons for you, but I was a harsher grader than you are. I've given him a flat B. So,
yeah, and I can't argue with it too much. You got to be, the best ability is availability. As much as I would, hate to say it, I am going to be, I'm trying to be kind of objective just for the sake of the player review. I love he's my favorite player on the Rays. If there's one Brandon Lowe fan, it's me. If there are no Brandon Lowe fans left, I've left the planet. I love Brandon Lowe so much. I believe in him. I believe this is the opinion segment. This is the Zach Dobb opinion segment, not the factual analysis segment. He's my favorite player on the Rays. I think he's going to be great this year. I think we're going to see a return to MVP form. He's healthy. He's ready. He's going to be great. He's going to prove all the people that have discounted him wrong. He's going to prove all the haters wrong. All the people that say that we should just get rid of him and move on to Mead. He's going to prove you wrong. He's going to be a big part of why this team is really successful this year. He's hitting another 30+ home runs this year. He's going to get down ballot MVP votes this year. That's my super hot take on Brandon Lowe. I love
like
Brandon
that,
Lowe.
I love that. Keep that fire going. What I don't understand is why Rays fans are often so divided on him. I know he's got some swing and miss in his game, but so did Carlos Pena, and we all loved him. And Brandon Lowe's a better hitter than Carlos Pena.
The reason is because this is what happens. When we lose a game, when you lose on any level, the first thing that you do is you go to look for what caused it and what might be the reason why we're losing. Often, the losing streaks for the Rays coincide with Brandon Lowe's cold streaks. If you would use a little bit more cognitive, maybe that was mean, but if you use a little bit more cognitive thinking than the people that are criticizing him would use, you may think, oh, the fact that he's having a rough game is probably why, it is probably correlating to them, performing poorly, but that's probably not just because of him, because again, he's getting the best of the pitching. So if he's having a cold streak, he's getting a lot of the best pitching. So why aren't the players around him performing well? Because he's sucking up a lot of the best pitches that you're getting from the enemy. So the other players should be performing well, even if he's having a cold streak. But they're just going to look at a couple of bad swings he may take, because if there's one thing about Brandon Lowe that I do not like, it's the only thing, is that this man cannot stay off of the low stuff. This man will swing at the low stuff all the time. It's the only thing. If you watched him consistently, as I have, I watched almost every Brandon Lowe at bat. He will get bit by the low stuff. But whenever he gets off of that, because he will get into some ruts where he will do that. But again, the low stuff that, from a perspective of a guy who's just watching the game, it looks obvious to me that it's going low and it's going to be a strike. But from a batter's perspective, from what the pitcher can do, what the pitcher's arsenal is, nowhere near as obvious. It's very easy for us to sit here behind the computer screen or in front of a TV and say, that was a curveball low. Obviously, you shouldn't have swung with that. Well, yeah, I'm sure Brandon Lowe, if he watched that same pitch, would have thought the same thing, but he wasn't watching it from that angle. He was watching it from the plate with the bat in his hand. So
yeah,
that just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. So can we all be nice to Brandon Lowe this year? Be nice to Brandon Lowe 2024 campaign starts here.
That's the campaign. Another guy who we have some mixed opinions on as a fan base is someone who has played a little bit of second base, has played a little bit of shortstop. He's a utility guy, as we've spoken about. Ben Zobrist, another utility guy in a similar vein, although he hasn't played outfield, at least that I'm aware of. Is Taylor Walls. He's the other guy he's one of the other guys we're gonna be doing a player review for today. What are your thoughts on Taylor Walls 2023?
So Taylor Walls has probably played more late major league games for the Rays than ever was planned for him, is what I want to start, right? We called him up as a precursor to He Who Shall Not Be Named. But he played a few games then, and then he was definitely the backup option from that point, as soon as he was called up. Then last year, number 5 was injured for a lot of the year. So Taylor Walls had to play a lot more games than you would have wanted then. And then we all know what happened in 2023. Taylor Walls again as the utility backup infielder to come in as a defensive replacement or to occasionally get one of the middle infielders a day off their feet has ended up being a regular for the team. And I don't think that was ever the plan for Taylor Walls, because his skill set is not to be an everyday starting infielder. Not because he can't field. In fact, he's an incredible fielder, one of the best fielders on the team and one of the best infielders in the league in terms of the glove. But can this guy hit? No, not really. And that's fine if he is a bench utility man, plays every couple of games to get someone on the middle infield off their feet or come in late in games to field. That's fine. But the problem is that's not been the role he's got. So he's been thrust into positions where he's not going to be as successful as perhaps he could be. This was his best offensive year. There was a minute in April where he looked like he might be onto something and might be actually quite good with the bat, or at least competent with the bat. And then the slide happened. The thing that I do like about Taylor Walls is that he had a 97th percentile chase rate, only 17.8% chase rate, which is among the best in baseball. And he had an 89th percentile walk percentage, a 12.6 walk percentage, which is also very, very good. However, anytime he made contact with the ball, it wasn't great. He did not have much of an xWOBA. His general exit velocity wasn't great. His launch angle wasn't particularly great. He wasn't hitting the ball hard with any consistency. He's not a threat with the bat. I think he's an important part to the team. I think his role, though, is too big. It's like making the dance captain in a stage play your lead role. They'll still be able to handle the musical numbers, but can they do the meaty acting? Probably not. So yeah, I'm forgiving of Taylor Walls because I think he's been given jobs to do that he's not great at. And he, in an ideal scenario, he wouldn't be doing those jobs at all, but he has to do those jobs, and he's not great at half of what he has to do.
Yeah, 99 games played in, 349 plate appearances this year, 142 games played, 466 plate appearances last year. I don't think anybody in the Rays organization thinks that's a good thing. And it's a symptom of number 5 and number 8, Rene Pinto, being hurt the last 2 years. So those are directly correlational. Like those two things are 100%, a part of the same problem. And he's played a lot, and he's been fine. He's fine. And I think that's the best I can really say for him. He's fine. I think the fact that they brought in Jose Caballero, which I think I've figured out how to say correctly now.
Yeah.
it definitely kind of makes me think his days are maybe not numbered, but his role is definitely going to be reduced. I think it completely obliterates the need for Aslavis Basabe bringing in Caballero, because I think there's no need for Walls and Basabe to be on the same roster. And as I said last year, when I did a solo show last year where I talked about this, Walls is better than Basabe. As much as it was fun to see the little Cinderella run Basabe went on for a little while, Walls is better. It just is what it is. So with Caballero now being a part of the team and being probably the opening day starting shortstop would be my guess, at least at the moment, Walls is hopefully going to be able to go to the role that he was supposed to be, which is a utility fill-in guy, and actually play that role for the team. Because I think just doing that, like you said, he's very good at it. He is exceptionally talented defensively, and it's something that you might not notice if you just look at the numbers, because the numbers are not kind to Taylor Walls. If you look at Fangraphs, he's been graded negatively defensively the last 2 seasons. I think anybody who's actually watched Taylor Walls play would disagree with that. And it's because he kind of breaks defensive metrics. This is something we're talking about in our group chat. Some of us were throwing some things out about that. He kind of breaks defensive metrics because he in the same way that you see offenses in football do pre-snap movement, he does pre-back contacting ball movement. He will analyze and watch a swing path and a swing decision by a batter and make movement before the ball hits the bat to put himself in a better position. Kevin Kiermaier did the same thing in the outfield and still does the same thing. It's why in the organization, Taylor Walls is often called the KK of the infield, because he has that same ability to read what's going on in front of him and make moves before the ball is hit. So then it looks like what he's doing is not that impressive, when in reality, he's made it so easy that it almost like it breaks the defensive statistic. It's why I don't really put any stock in defensive statistics. I think if you're going to have an informed decision about someone defensively, this is just my opinion, you got to actually watch him play defense. I don't think we've really quite cracked defensive stats. If I want to know how good someone is defensively, I'm going to go watch a couple games of them playing, because that's how you're going to know. And to me, in reality, I think you can tell offensively how good someone is by their statistics. Defensively, I think you got to watch them play. You got to watch and see how actually good is this person defensively. If you've ever watched Taylor Walls play, which if you're a Rays fan, you've watched a lot more than maybe you wanted to, you'll know that he's very, very good. He has gotten yips occasionally throwing the ball. Every once in a while, he'll get the yips, but that has not been a consistent thing with him. What is consistent is his excellent defense. But again, that's kind of all the role he should be playing. He should not be playing 150 games or almost 100 games, and almost 100 games last year and almost 150 games the year before that. That should not be happening. And I don't think it's going to happen this year, because now, even if maybe these guys aren't as good defensively, there are guys with offensive capabilities much better than him that are now ready, so that if Brandon Lowe, knocking on wood that it won't happen, but if he were to get hurt, there are other guys who are going to step into that role, and it's not going to be Taylor Walls because of the offensive output they can, put out. So I think Taylor, I don't know that his days are numbered, but we're going to see him regress back into the role that I think he was actually, intended for organizationally, which is the backup infielder, late game defensive replacement for someone like maybe an Aranda if he gets into the game, someone like that who's maybe not that great defensively, a late inning replacement to provide some defensive utility.
Exactly that. I think he is valuable to any team, yes, but not in a large everyday starter role is basically what we're saying. And yeah, it was a great point what you made on why defensive metrics don't work, because essentially because he moves before the pitch, they don't think he moves very much, and therefore they don't think his range is very good, and that's why defensive metrics don't like him very much. Even outs above average, which is maybe one of the more sophisticated ones and more highly regarded ones by Savant, puts him at -7 outs above average. And I don't think anybody could believe that he made 7 outs less than an average shortstop last year. Yeah. That just doesn't compute. So it's one of them where I think you can look a little bit at the Savant stuff, but sometimes there are outliers like Taylor Walls. And it's the same way where it's like diving catch does not mean you're a good outfielder, right? Like right. KK is an example of this. Jose Siri is an example of this, where They don't have to dive that often because their routes are so good. If your route is really good, you don't have to dive as often. Or if you're just really fast, you will get to the ball and not have to make a diving play. So it's one of those where you've just got to consider a lot of different things. And I don't think we've nailed down the exact formula yet. But for now, just watch the guy. You'll probably be able to tell if they're a good fielder. What would you grade Taylor Walls on his 2023 season?
This is tough because he just is not that good. Like he does the role that he's supposed to do. C+.
One F war. So
C+. That's like, because even though he's out of role, he's not out of position, but he's out of role. He's not supposed to be in this role. That being said, he still took the at bats, and you still would like to see more production than one WAR from your shortstop. You just would. The guy they brought in to, not so subtly play in place of him, put up 3 WAR almost in Fangraphs, 2.8. That's almost triple. So like, I'm sorry, he passes. He passed the class. He did his job. But when your job is to be just kind of fine and just be there and play defense, and you just do that and you don't do anything else really at all, except for one good month at the beginning of the year, I'll give you a C+ because I'm nice, but you passed. That's really all you did.
Yeah, I think C+ is fair. Part of me is like, is there any kind of tiny little spark in the void that Taylor Walls could be any better than he is at the plate just because of his swing decisions are so good? He doesn't chase and he does draw a lot of walks. Is there some way that we can harness those good decisions to make a little bit better quality of contact and your zone contact percentage be a little bit better to factor something? Because he is a good base runner. He stole 22 bases last year. So like it feels like if only he had a bit of, I don't know, if his swing was a little bit better. I don't know. There's almost something. It's frustratingly close. But yeah.
And he is 27 years old. So it's not like he's a finished product. Like, there is still maybe some potential for him to improve. I think one question might be, is there a better version of Taylor Walls out there that maybe isn't on the Rays? Because I guess what I'm leading to is, do you think Taylor Walls will be wearing a Rays uniform by the end of the 2024 season?
Yes, I do. I'm pretty certain in that. I think there's no reason to take him out of what would be a backup infielder, utility infielder role, unless maybe both Basabe and Caballero both started playing out of their minds. That would be
Carson Williams just is hitting the cover off the baseball and continuing to do what we've seen him do, which is just be really, really good. Does that change your mind at all?
No, I don't. I think there is a 0% chance Carson Williams plays a major league game this year.
Wow.
I think there is a 0% chance that he plays a major league game this year. I shouldn't say that because baseball's weird, but I think it's so unlikely. I will shave my head if Carson Williams plays a major league baseball game for the Tampa Bay Rays this year.
Let's clip that. We'll clip that and keep that.
Because I love Carson Williams. I think he is the new long-term solution at the shortstop position for the Rays. But where did he finish the season? He's not played Double-A yet.
Yeah.
And watch the Rays do the thing they did with Caminero, where they just like get him to skip Triple-A and play like 10 games in September. Oh, maybe that happens. I shouldn't.
I mean, I think it's not impossible that he makes some starts at the major league level. I think he could play, and maybe my opinion is a little bit informed by the fact that I think the options at the major league level are not that great. I will say he has played he just a cup of coffee.
He did play Triple-A.
He did have a cup of coffee. He did play Triple-A, and when he went back down from Triple-A, he did go back to Double-A. And again, 6 games, 21 at bats, but he did hit to a 1.062 OPS while he was in AAA. So, or AA.
Is it too late to rescind that bet?
It's on the books. But I will say that if Carson Williams is playing at the major league level, it's either because he's so good you can't afford not to, which is probably unlikely, or it's because something horribly, horribly wrong has happened at the major league level, which I don't think that's something we want to see. If you want to know more about Carson Williams, which we will probably talk more about him as we get closer to the season, there's a really nice little write-up on him on Fangraphs if you're interested. That came out this morning. If you want to go read a little bit about Carson Williams, I would recommend that you do, because you're going to hear more about him as we go further on. Read about Carson Williams. He's really, really cool. Someone else you should read more about, because I think people need to know a little bit more about him, is our final player review for this week, and that is Rene Pinto. If you are following me on Twitter, which you should be following our RBLR Sports and Depressed Rays as well on Twitter. If you are following those people on Twitter, you would have seen a tweet that I put out earlier in the week, which was a little bit of a vote that presented two catchers for a vote on which you'd rather have, A and B. I would recommend you go take a look at the tweet. The vote came down to the one player got about 25% of the vote, the other player got 75% of the vote, and it was basically on their defensive metrics. The metrics were framing strike rate, K to walk percentage, pass balls, and wild pitches allowed, and then pop time. And basically unilaterally, people decided that player B was the one they would rather have. Go take a look at the tweet if you want the specific numbers. And player A was Adley Rutschman, who I believe is the consensus best player and best catcher in baseball right now. Player B was Rene Pinto. So basically 75% of everybody who voted on that thought Rene Pinto was better than Adley Rutschman defensively. I would agree with that. I don't think he's a better player than Adley Rutschman. If you gave me the option to pick one of them, I would take Adley Rutschman, of course, because he's maybe one of the most valuable catchers. Maybe the most valuable, not even catchers, but maybe one of the most valuable players in baseball right now. I think if you just redrafted the MLB right now, I think a lot of people would be very surprised how high Adley Rutschman would go in that draft, because how valuable it is to have a really good catcher and how few and far between the really good offensive and really good defensive catchers are. But that being said, Rene Pinto is very, very, very good defensively, and I think people are kind of overlooking that.
Yeah, he's so good defensively, and people do not appreciate that Rene Pinto is extremely valued by the Rays. I mean, losing Christian Bethancourt and giving him complete control of the battery in 2024 is a sign of how much the Rays love the defense out of Pinto, because that is what they love in their catches. Look at all the catches we've had in this Eric Neander era. Mike Zunino, known as one of the better defensive catchers in the league. Even going back to Jose Molina, we valued catcher defense and framing over everything. And Rene Pinto has a 95 percentile pop time, which is how quickly you can release the ball from receiving the ball to throwing it to second base on a steal attempt. He's at 95 percentile, so he's one of the best in the league at doing that, which is very useful in today's climate. And also, he's an above average framer. He doesn't have a full sample size in 2023 for Savant to lock it in, but they really like it. They said he generated prevented 2 runs from his framing, according to Savant last year. So he is good. However, we do got to ask questions about that blocking, though.
We do have to ask the questions, but I think that the questions have been a little bit overblown. And I will say that I was part of the people that were questioning it. Even last year, I was questioning it a little bit. But since the offseason has come and we've looked into things a little bit more realistically and a little bit more statistically as opposed to just opinions, I think passed balls are one of those things. Everybody thinks that their team is the worst at it because they're the ones that see it, and it's really not actually that bad. It's the same thing with runners in scoring position. Everybody thinks their team is the worst at it because they see the most opportunities for it. In reality, he is not only at league average, he's better than league average at preventing pass balls. the narrative that he is, kind of a less than defensively because of the pass balls is not a good one. Again, I just mentioned it. I'll read this one stat because I think it does need to be read off of that poll I posted earlier. He is at his percentage for allowing pass balls and wild pitches allowed is 1.3%, which is really, really good. In case you're wondering, it's really, 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 really good to only allow 1.3% of your pitches to be wild. And again, keep in mind when you see that number, this is also in the context of how good the Rays pitching staff is. And part of the goodness of the Rays pitching staff is because the stuff is wild. So it kind of comes with the territory that there's going to be some wild pitches. But the idea that Rene Pinto is allowing more than the average is not accurate. And the idea that he's allowing like an egregiously more than the average is just inaccurate. And when we talk about the value of a catcher, this is something I really wanted to talk about when talking about Rene Pinto. And this is my opinion on catching as a whole. I really don't care that much about what you do offensively. I've got 8 of the guys in the lineup to be able to do things offensively. I think the specter of Wilson Ramos and of Travis d'Arnaud kind of hangs in the Rays fans' consciousness when we think about catchers, because we just like to have those guys back in their offensive output back without, realizing that they were really not very good defensively. And Wilson Ramos was actively just kind of bad defensively. He was really good offensively, which was fun, but he was not very good defensively. And neither was Travis d'Arnaud. I love Travis d'Arnaud. He's very fun, but not that great defensively, not in the same stratosphere as Rene Pinto. For me, especially when you look at how good the rest of, the Rays, just their entire offensive output that they can give out as a team. I don't need catcher to be giving me much of anything. So I personally put way more value in defense, because that's the thing that, that catcher can do that no other team, no other position on the field can do, is provide that kind of value defensively. It's the most valuable defensive spot in the field. And I value the defense way more than the offense just for that reason.
Yeah, I am in agreement that that's what needs to come first when it comes to catcher value. Like, hitting is like a bonus for catchers. Let's use Jose Molina, right? I love Jose Molina. He may be the best fielder of all the Molinas. Don't tell Cardinals fans. Okay. So Jose Molina in I believe it was 2012. Okay. Jose Molina batted 223, 286, 355 for a WRC plus of 81. So he was 20%, 19% worse than the league average hitter. That is bad. That is really bad. Okay. He got, despite being pretty much 20% worse than the league average hitter, 3.5 WAR that year. 3.5 WAR, which would put him 4th amongst American League catchers by Fangraphs WAR in 2012. Behind only, the big names like Joe Mauer.
Yeah.
So that's how valuable Hall of Famer Joe Mauer. So that's how valuable catcher defense is to a team. And this is why I know most people in the Rays org are fine with moving on from Bethancourt. I think something that's really valuable from catchers is familiarity with their pitchers as well. And Pinto has been with the organization and how they work with their pitchers and how they utilize their pitchers for a really long time. I believe he's the longest tenured Ray in terms of in the organization as a whole.
He is.
He knows how the Rays utilize their pitchers. He knows what the Rays organization want to do with their pitchers and how to get the best out of their pitchers. So he is perfect to be the number 1 catcher next year. And I think he's going to be super valuable. I think as a hitter profile, he's super weird. He doesn't walk at all, but he does strike out quite a lot. And whenever he does hit the ball, he absolutely mashes it. So I guess it's just very similar makeup to Mike Zunino, I suppose. But yeah, Rene Pinto is going to be a top 5 catcher defensively next year. I think everything points to that. So that's what we want. The only thing that I disagree with is getting rid of Bethancourt, because now we've got rid of someone that's familiar with the staff and how the Rays want to work with their pitchers, and we're just bringing in some guy to be the backup. And if Rene Pinto gets hurt, then we're in trouble. I think I'm completely fine with Rene Pinto being the guy. I still disagree with getting rid of Bethancourt as a reliable backup. But to keep the topic on Rene Pinto, I was encouraged by what I saw from Rene Pinto last year. And I'm excited to see a full season with him kind of fully attached to the keys. So he was a league average hitter with an amazing defense. That's all you want out of your catcher. So I'd give Rene Pinto a B for limited time.
So I'm going to give him an A-. And the reason that I'm going to give him an A- is because is just, one number. And I think there's a lot more numbers that are behind it, but it kind of encapsulates the one number. And that is, what do you think Christian Bethancourt's F4 was last season? Just a guess.
1.5.
What do you think Rene Pinto's F4 was last year? Just a guess. Reminder, he only played 40 games.
40 games. 0.3.
Last year, Rene Pinto had a 0.7 F4. Christian Bethancourt had a 0.6. He played literally a third. He had literally a third of the plate appearances and a little less than half the games, or a little more than half the games that Christian Bethancourt played, and he outvalued him. If you extrapolate that over, what we could expect him to play this year, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 140 games if he's really the starter, you'd think somewhere in that neighborhood, 140 to maybe even more than that. That extrapolates out to like a 3 F4, which would put him in the top 6 in all of baseball in terms of F4. He's never going to generate incredible value offensively to where he would get up to maybe the best F4 in baseball. I don't think it's going to happen for him. But if he's hitting league average, hitting a couple home runs here and there, and providing the kind of value, he's a top 10 catcher in all of baseball. And it leads me to the last thing I want to say about him is I give him an A-. And I think he's really, really good. And I think he's going to get even better. But I want to throw out one more narrative before we wrap it up for today. And that is that there's a narrative out there this offseason that the Rays need to add a catcher. It's the thing that I've heard the most consistently from Rays fans all offseason long. I'm here to tell you, no, we don't. Because if you actually were to look at the catchers that are available out there, there's only a few catchers that I'd really want to have over Rene Pinto. I would take William Contreras, Adley Rutschman, maybe Cal Raleigh, probably Will Smith, probably Sean Murphy, probably Jonah Heim, probably Patrick Bailey, maybe JT Realmuto, though he wasn't that good last year. And that's kind of it. And I hate to break it to you, but none of those guys are going anywhere. Those are all on contending teams, and none of those guys are going literally anywhere anytime soon. And the rest of the guys, when you move on down, they're either, defensive value but no offensive value, which is what we have, but Pinto's going to be better than them, or they're high offense and low defense value, and I don't want that for my catcher. Not interested in that for my catcher. I've got other positions for that. So when you really look at it, there's no need to add, and there's no upgrades available. So I just want to say out there, for those of you, if you're out there thinking that the Rays need to upgrade a catcher, they don't. They have a really good solution already. They'll bring on somebody to replace him. Maybe it'll be someone from the minor league system they give a cup of coffee to here and there, but the Rays do not need to make a move at catcher. That's just my opinion.
Okay, I agree that we don't need to make a move to upgrade our starting catcher. What I don't understand is why we removed some depth catching options in Christian Bethancourt, who could have very easily been the backup. And if Rene Pinto gets hurt at all, Alex Jackson is going to have to do 100 games at catcher for the Rays. I think it is unwise to play they're not going to get hurt and it'll be fine game, especially after the past 2 years. I don't know why we're like, yeah, we'll have one catcher, you'll squat for 140 games and nothing bad will happen. I don't trust that to be the case. I think Rene Pinto is perfectly fine as the number one option. I don't want to be in a situation where Alex Jackson is our number one catcher if Rene Pinto, gets a foul ball that catches him bad and it shatters his knee. You know what I'm saying? I think it's playing with fire in a way that the Rays should probably know better than to do. And it's one of the few times I've actually disagreed with a Rays move in a very long time, because we don't have catching depth. The only reason we had Travis d'Arnaud in the first place because he was our 5th catcher in 2019 because how many catchers got hurt? We were relying on Eric Kratz, Anthony Bemboom. Do you want to, as a contending team, do we want to be shopping in the waiver wire for catchers if Rene Pinto gets injured in April?
No, we don't. No, I agree with you there. I think there was some part of it that was they wanted to really, maybe they really felt like it was going to help him mentally to give him the keys. Maybe they had some insight. They've worked with him for a long time. So maybe they just had the insight that it would really help him mentally to know that he has gotten the keys. So there's no competition at catcher. So maybe that's the reason. Obviously, they've also had him in New York for a long time, so maybe they're just really confident in his health. But again, I don't disagree with you that freak accidents can happen. You can just randomly tear your ACL one day for no reason at all. It can happen. But I will say that the Rays obviously have access to his medicals, and they're very confident, clearly, that he's going to be healthy. So I'm okay with it, only because there's got to be something that the Rays know that we don't. That I'm just like, okay, I guess they must have it. Maybe they really like Alex Jackson. I don't know. I don't like him that much, but maybe they really do. So, I think the Rays, they obviously had a lot of confidence in that decision to make that move. So it's interesting to me. I didn't love it at the time. I'm okay with it now. I'm just interested to see what Rene Pinto is going to do. I think he's going to have a really good season this year. I think maybe next year he'll be one of the guys who gets his own player review. It's very possible. As opposed to getting, sandwiched in with some other guys. But we'll see.
Yeah, I like Rene Pinto. Don't get it twisted. I love Rene Pinto. And I think he'll be really, really valuable for us come next year. I just really hope he stays healthy.
Yep. And if you want to keep your wardrobe healthy, there's a really easy place you can go to do that. That's shop.rblrsports.com, where you can get 20% or 10%, off your order with promo code FLAPPY. If you're interested in upgrading your wardrobe and being 100% comfortable in your wardrobe all the time, shop.rblrsports.com is where you want to be. That's our show for today, guys. Thanks for sticking with us through a lot of really important stuff, actually. I think we talked about some things that are really important for the future of the Rays. I'm excited to see where all these guys do this coming year. I hope to see a little bit less of Taylor Walls than I've seen in previous years, and I hope to see a lot more of Rene Pinto and Brandon Lowe than we've seen in previous years. So maybe we get a little flip there, and we get to see, more some guys we've seen less of and less of some guys we've seen more of. That's what I'm hoping for going forward. Any last notes before we head out, Pat?
No, I think we've done a lot here. And if you go to shop.rblrsports.com, you won't need to sign a backup t-shirt or cap because you can guarantee that they'll be healthy for you and a healthy part of your wardrobe for a very long time. And you won't need to get a backup podcast if you continue to listen to the RBLR Rays show, because we're not going to the IL anytime soon.
We absolutely are not. Like, subscribe, share us around to all your friends who love Tampa Bay sports and who just love baseball, because they're going to get the best podcast out there and the best baseball podcast out there as well. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us this week. And as always, Raise up.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.